I'm going to try to give you a little background info. I'm sure you know mostly about your neighborhood. I'm sure most of you could give the tour of the neighborhood today, but I thought I would, give you a little background info, and we're going to try to show you as many sites as possible. As this tour grew, we started with a small group, and we were going to be in a much smaller bus, and we were going to be able to access some of the side streets a little bit better. Willie, our driver, knows his coach very well. There are certain clearances of viaducts that we need to get under, so there's some streets that we will absolutely not be able to go down today. Some of the streets around the school here have traffic circles in the middle of the intersection. It's going to make it very difficult to get a 60-foot bus down some of these streets. So that's just a little warning, but we are going to try to show you as much as possible today of the neighborhood and the surrounding area. Jim's given me a long list. We'll try to get everything covered of what he wants to see. So we'll do our best I can. This is your tour today, by the way. This is your neighborhood. When we're in the park or when we're by a building, if one of you want to get off and take a picture, raise your hand. We'll stop the bus. We have plenty of time today, everyone. So, again, when we're in the park, if we pull into the boathouse and you guys want to get out and just look at the vistas or something, let me know, because this is for you guys today. All right? Yes, sir.
What happened to Kosciuszko at the park? They moved the statue.
They moved, he is on Solidary Drive. Solidary Drive is on Museum Campus, and that's a street that stretches from the Field Museum over to the Adler Planetarium. So we have Kosciuszko there, we have Havlik, and we have Copernicus statues. It's called Solidary Drive. I know the Poles used to march down Augusta, up through Humboldt Boulevard, and to the Kosciuszko statue. So that's no longer the case. A lot of the Poles have moved out of this neighborhood. So we'll talk about that, of course, along with all the ethnic groups. And we'll talk about it as we go along. Just to let you know, our driver today is Willie. My name's Jason. Raise your hand, get my attention for anything you need, and we'll try to get your questions answered. If I don't know the answer, I will make up the best possible answer.
White Castle for lunch.
All right. My first question, obviously, how many people still live in the neighborhood? Anyone? Still live in the neighborhood? Oh, okay. Everyone's moved out, huh? All right. Anyone still in Chicago? All right. Well, welcome back to the neighborhood, everyone. We're going to get started. Willie, we're going to go up to Armitage and turn right.
Came back. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking Illinois. I thought most of these people were California.
Well, I know Jim's family traveled from Florida. I'm sure a lot of you have traveled long distances to get here. I'm glad you're all coming back to your neighborhood. We're going to be doing Humboldt Park today, Logan Square, a little bit of Buckstown. These names may mean nothing to you. Chicago is a city of neighborhoods. We have, by law, 77 community areas that have distinct boundaries. Within those areas, it said we have about 120 different neighborhoods of Chicago. So depending on who you talk to, I live in this neighborhood, maybe 2 blocks down, I live in another neighborhood. The neighborhoods do not have distinct boundaries like the community areas do. So we're going to be heavily in the community area of Logan Square and the community area of Humboldt Park. We'll also be touching on a neighborhood of the community area of Westtown, which is made up of Ukrainian Village and Wicker Park. Those are neighborhoods to the east a little bit, to the east of Western Avenue. Now I will say, the neighborhoods that you grew up in were not part of the city of Chicago until 1869. That's when we annexed Cicero Township. Cicero Township went from North Avenue on the north to 39th Street on the south, from Western Avenue west to about Pulaski, and that was known as Cicero Township, and it was incorporated into the city of Chicago in 1869. We're turning on Armitage here. Armitage is kind of the dividing line between Humboldt Park to your right, Logan Square to your left. So this is kind of dividing line. And what's happening in these areas is called gentrification. That's when you have a poorer class, and Humboldt Park is a working class, lower income neighborhood today. and you have wealthy people encroaching on people, buying up the old houses, building brand new condominium buildings, and outpricing the neighbors. So you're pushing out the poorer class. Now that has happened in full in Wicker Park and Bucktown. You have $1 million homes in Bucktown today. You have $1 million homes in Wicker Park, and that is not happening west of Western Avenue. The people of Humboldt Park, the Puerto Ricans, the African American populations, do not want to lose their homes, and they're fighting gentrification. So you'll see signs, no gentrification in Humboldt Park. They're fighting it because Humboldt Park was always a working class neighborhood. It was where you could raise your kids, you could send them to the public schools, and in 1 or 2 generations they may have a better education than you, and they're making a better life for themselves. And that was kind of the story of these neighborhoods, the great ethnic neighborhoods that we know of. Now, gentrification is what we call the term of pushing out a poorer class, bringing in gentrification. So we're at Milwaukee and Armitage. Milwaukee was that great plank toll road when it first came into the city of Chicago. It goes all the way up to Milwaukee. And it was literally a plank toll road. Now, one of the great Chicago institutions that I'm sure you all went to on the right is Margie's Candies. Margie's is still here. The Oak Theater is not here. The Oak Theater would have been right here. It is gone. Everything changes. We're crossing Western Avenue. Crystal Theater on North Avenue is gone. The Congress Theater is still here. There is the Red Hot stand, little hot dog stand. Those places don't die out as much as neighborhood theaters do. Neighborhood theaters, they went to the wayside when you get those big movie palaces anymore. These small movie theaters, you guys grew up in the great era of neighborhoods, where I was telling Jim, you didn't even have to leave your neighborhood. Everything you needed was right there in your own neighborhood. You didn't have to go downtown. You didn't have to go to large grocery stores. Everything you could have done was right there in your neighborhood. That's not so much the case today anymore. Yep, those little mom and pop shops start dying out as you're getting the big box stores and the large grocery stores. Everything kind of changes in Chicago. We're going to take the game and turn right. Everything in Chicago, we say about every 50 years, a neighborhood will make a change, either socioeconomically or ethnically. So Humboldt Park, once a great German, Polish, Norwegian, Jewish, Italian, even a small Irish section, is now our largest Puerto Rican neighborhood of Chicago. There's a sizable African American population in Humboldt Park. Just north in Logan Square, a very large Hispanic population today. So then, as you guys know, 50s, 60s, and 70s, you're bringing in those Hispanic populations into the neighborhoods. And in the 60s, we had the Great White Flight out of Chicago, leaving these neighborhoods that were transforming into other neighborhoods. And that happened very heavily. Yep, we're going to go south on Damon. We're in Bucktown right now, and this is what happened to Bucktown. A lot of the old small worker cottages are being bought up, and beautiful condominium buildings. Today, Damon Avenue in Bucktown is one of our highest high-end shopping districts. You're going to see boutiques. You're going to see buildings that are going up like this, brand new condominium buildings. These aren't cheap, everyone. These are starting at about $300,000 and going up. This is Damon Avenue. We're heading south. St. Mary's of the Angels, a huge Polish church, would be just off to your left. You might be able to see the dome off to your left. St. Mary's of the Angels, huge Polish church. We will go past St. Sylvester's. Bucktown was part of Logan Square, and this was the Polish section of the neighborhood. You had St. Mary's of the Angels, St. Hedwig's, and the Polish National Church, all in this neighborhood. Yes, okay. This is Bloomingdale Street. You guys probably remember this as a train track. That's no longer a train yard. That's a park. That's an elevated park. You could walk up there and... No, I'm serious. Everything changes, everyone. You could walk up there. It's an elevated park system to connect you from Bucktown into Logan Square and Humboldt Park. You can see all the new shopping coming into this neighborhood. This is what the city and certain people want Humboldt Park to look like. This is not what Humboldt Park is. Humboldt Park's going the other way. They want to fight this, what we call gentrification. You will see some of the old great buildings here in Bucktown and Wicker Park. There'll be an old fire station coming up here on your left that goes back to the 1890s. And a lot of the buildings on these main streets, these aren't the original buildings, but they're completely gutted, you know, gut rehabs with totally new businesses in them today. Bucktown and Wicker Park, you're going to see a lot of young families, a lot of young professionals. You can see a lot of construction going on some of the side streets that you guys want to get up and down today. Coming up is Six Corners, Milwaukee, North Avenue, and Damon. So, the elevated blue line.
This is really good. I'm gonna want to.
This is the old bank building here.
That's the best part of the tour is learning about houses. You're gonna forget it.
Kitty corner from us, we call it the Flatiron Building. It's the brick and terracotta building, just kitty corner from us. The Flatiron Building. Today, that's an artist studio. You could go watch artists do their work. What happened to Wicker Park? Wicker Park and Bucktown in the 70s and 80s, very rundown neighborhoods. The gang started finding these neighborhoods. People fled the neighborhoods. In the 1990s, the artists started coming back. The artists are always looking for cheap studios, so the artists move in. Around 1995, 1996, people start buying up the old mansions along Hoyne Avenue. That was called Baron Row. Some of the wealthy Germans built huge Victorian mansions. People of wealth started to buy into this neighborhood, gut them, rehab the buildings, and from about 1996, 97 up to current day, this neighborhood is transformed into a very high-end, wealthy neighborhood. We still call it Wicker Park in Bucktown, and this is what Humboldt Park is fighting, this kind of change. Yes, sir. Wicker Park School is still here. It's called the J. Pritzker School. The Pritzker family in Chicago owns the Hyatt hotels. They grew up in the neighborhood, and it's Pritzker School today. So we just went past Milwaukee Avenue again. Milwaukee Avenue was that great street in Chicago where they say, you know, where you can learn stick 'em up in 6 different languages, was the old saying about Milwaukee Avenue. Yes, ma'am. The Association House, I'm not familiar with.
North
Okay.
Avenue in London.
That's right.
It was by the boathouse, you said, in Humboldt Park?
No, North Avenue in
Oh.
London.
Yeah, North Avenue.
We'll be going down North Avenue. You'll get a chance. Yes. Oh yeah, the Turkish.
I was president of the
It's been renovated and it's heavily condominium today. A lot of the old apartment buildings are condominiums today. This is the park itself. This is Wicker Park, a very small park. Joel and Charles Wicker, that's where it gets its name, were businessmen, donated this park to the city of Chicago in 1871. The next street is called Nelson Algren, Honorary Nelson Algren Way. Nelson Algren, the great author, lived in the neighborhood, and he lived right around the corner. Other people, famous people that lived in the neighborhood, Studs Terkel for a little bit, Saul Bellow, Augie March, supposedly Augie, the book, I don't know if you've read Saul Bellow's book, Augie March, The Adventures of Augie March. Supposedly Augie is named after Augusta Boulevard. In one of his books, he wrote heavily about the neighborhood, and we're going to turn right at Division, Willie.
Everything is so narrow and long.
But you'll see a lot of the old great 2 flats and the 3 flats that Chicago's known for. We'll try to get you down as many of the side streets, maybe even see some of your old homes a little bit later on in the tour here. We're going to go back west on Division. Division Street really kind of divides Wicker Park to your right. If we were to go further south, we would hit Ukrainian Village, a very strong Ukrainian population in the neighborhood. they've held on to their neighborhood since the early 1900s. There are still many Ukrainian churches just south of us, and they still hold on to a sizable population over there. Coming up directly ahead of us is Roberto Clemente High School. You guys all know it as a different name. Thule High School. To your left is the Russian Cathedral. If you look just back to your left, that's the Russian Cathedral. Very small stucco church, built by Louis Sullivan, one of Chicago's most famous architects, built in 1901. That's called Holy Trinity. The original building pushes back that way, right over there. These are the new additions to Roberto Clemente. This is the high school on your left. It's so big that they have a sky bridge that goes over Division here. The original school building's off to your right. We're going to go left here, Willie. So the original school is pushing off to your right. You'll see the original building over there. We're back to Western Avenue. If you look ahead of us, you see two giant Puerto Rican flags. When this became a Puerto Rican neighborhood, they put in these flags in 1991 as a gift to the community. In between the two flags is a street. It's Division Street, but it's known as Paseo Boricua, or the Puerto Rican Passage. And that is where predominantly the Puerto Rican businesses are on this street in the neighborhood. There's Thule back there, the main building. We'll go past it, yeah. Don't worry, I kind of have a route in my head today, everyone, but we'll get most of what you want to see. Yes, sir? I'm sorry. No more taverns? It's a different population. On Division Street, the Russian bathhouse that was on Division Street is now a luxury spa. The bathhouse on North Avenue is now a restaurant called Spring, a very fancy restaurant. We're going to turn right here, Willie. This is about the farthest south I'm going to take you. This is Augusta Boulevard. So the Poles used to march. Just to your left is St. Helens Polish Catholic Church. They used to come up Augusta, turn right into the park, and that's how we're going to take the route into Humboldt Park. Also, if you were to push straight down Augusta, you would hit the Polish American Museum, the old Polish Triangle, St. Stanislaus Kostka Church, Holy Trinity Church, all those great Polish churches. As the Poles pushed westward, you can see the Polish churches coming this way. But as you're on Augusta, a very famous, you can see some of the new condominium buildings coming in, intermixed with these old, a lot of the housing in these neighborhoods are turn of the century, right around 1900, 1890s, early 1900s. Wonderful housing stock. But you'll see some of the new condominium buildings coming in as well. A famous alum of Augusta Boulevard is Mike Krzyzewski, the Duke coach, the Duke basketball coach, grew up on Augusta. Just a little side note.
How about Newt Rockney?
Newt Rockney lived in Logan Square. Yeah. Wells is pretty far back. That's where my dad went, and it's pretty far back. That's at Ashland and Augusta and Ashland area. So we're approaching the park itself. Now, Humboldt Park in 1869, the city of Chicago and actually the state legislature passed the West Park Commission Act, and that set up parks on the outskirts of the city of Chicago. So you had Upper, Central, and Lower Park. Upper Park became Humboldt Park. The Germans in the neighborhood really pushed for, to be named after Alexander von Humboldt, which is a German naturalist. Central Park would become Garfield Park, and Lower Park would become Douglas Park. And these parks were established in 1869 And that's really when they got the start here. And the neighborhoods flourished there afterwards. So there used to be an intersection, there still is, Grand Avenue, Milwaukee, and Halsted was one of the initial points of settlement in Chicago, a huge overpopulated kind of what you would say ghetto today. When the Great Chicago Fire, 1871, destroyed downtown, the parks were established, 1869, people really pushed out to these neighborhoods. And that's where you really get the beginning of the residential neighborhood. 1871, people really wanted to live around the parks. You know, green space, open air, places to walk, places to exercise, picnics, and Humboldt Park was a very desirable place to live from the 1870s all the way through the 1950s, early 1960s. So we're going to turn right onto the boulevard, Willie. This is the southern end of Humboldt Park itself. Grand Avenue comes right up in here. Grand Avenue was one of the great migration streets for the Italians in the neighborhood. They started further back on Grand and went all the way out into the suburbs through Grand Avenue. Where's the buffaloes? We'll show you the buffaloes. No worries. We will. We will stop there. So, the park was originally set up by William LeBaron Jenney. He was the father of the skyscraper. But most of the West Park Commission, the western parks, were designed by a landscape architect named Jens Jensen. He was a famous, he became a famous landscape architect. This is the stables. These are the horse stables, 1896 building. So that goes way back, that's over 100 years old. It's meant to look like a German country house. So imagine this beautiful house in the German countryside. And that was the horse stables. All of our parks, of course, had horse stables, bridle paths where you could go, exercise your horses. Today, there's a Puerto Rican arts institution that uses that building there. So there'll be various art exhibitions about, Puerto Rican art and culture. He is jogging, not dancing. That's called speed walking. Division Street splits the park right in half, just about. We're on Division. And we're going to turn into the park right up here. The northern part of the park you guys may remember more since it's a little closer to where you guys grew up. Our park system is great. We have a park and boulevard system. You could go from downtown through the south side, through the west side, all the way to the north side and back to downtown through our parks. It's not the emerald necklace that Boston has, but it's very similar. This street that goes around the park is actually named after the first elected mayor of Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans, although we call them immigrants, they are U.S. citizens by birth since 1952. So they're not technically immigrants, but we call them immigrants. They started heavily coming to, Chicago in the 1950s and 60s. Puerto Ricans are our second largest Hispanic population in Chicago. Our largest is Mexican. We have over 1 million Mexicans in Chicago. They are 1/3 of our population. On your right is not the boathouse. That is the field house. The boathouse is going to be across the way where the music court was. This is a new baseball field. The Cubs have a, Little Cubs field. They do build baseball fields in underserved communities here. You can even see beyond the field house, they put in a little beach there. They hand dug a little lagoon there, and they have the beach now. That building is 1928. It's designed by Mickelson and Romstad, a Norwegian firm. Yes, it is. On your right here is Bunker Hill. Basically, Humboldt Park has 2 lagoons that are connected through a prairie river. And that's something the landscape architects would have heavily used. Yeah, we had the horrible storms last night, everyone. We're really windy.
Lost the tree last night.
The Armory is 1940. It's an Art Deco building. It's no longer used as an armory. No. We don't have many armories like we used to in the parks or in various neighborhoods anymore. This was National Guard Armory. Oh, I do see some men in uniform there. It's by the, I think it's by the boathouse that you'll be able to see. So as we come around here, this is North Avenue off to your left. This is the northern part of the park. A lot of ball fields, of course, softball, you know, home to Chicago. People that come to Chicago, they ask me, softball, you play the 12-inch? I said, no, the 16-inch. They said, what is that? What's a 16-inch? I'm probably too young to know the mid-city area, is it? We're going to go down the main boulevard here. Yeah. Jim says it's the Burger King now. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm trying to listen to one question here. Leif Erikson's going to be coming up right here on your right. Leif Erikson, of course, since there was a sizable Norwegian population in the neighborhood, of course, he was the great Norwegian sailor. He'll be coming up here very shortly on your right. Kosciuszko's not in the park anymore. Leif Erikson is coming up here on your right. He's standing on the boulder.
There's the boathouse on the left.
Kosciuszko is no longer in the park. So this is Leif Erikson here. This is the boat landing, the boathouse. This building goes back to 1907, designed by Schmidt, Garden, and Martin. They were very prairie architects. There's Mr. von Humboldt right there, statue of Mr. von Humboldt. These lanterns, these are copper lanterns. These were also designed by the same architects that did the building. The music court was right here where this parking lot used to be, the great music court of Humboldt Park. Do you guys want to get off for a little bit? Just to look up and take a look at the lagoons? Okay, we'll circle around and get the bus parked. The former Rose Garden isn't here so much anymore. There is a garden, and it is still guarded by the buffaloes. Those were designed by Edward Kemys. So if you guys want to get off and take a look at the lagoon, or just, you know, kind of have a little break, we'll get you off here, and we'll get you back on the bus when you're ready. Take as much time as you guys want. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
This is the bridge over there in Humboldt Park area by the boathouse that a lot of us grew up on. We used to go swimming and they're underneath there. I remember the one time JT was swimming there hanging from the bridge and he swung and dropped in there and he cut his foot open. There was a steel garbage can under the water someone dropped in there.
It's funny when the other girl said the same thing, but it was a broken bottle.
Yeah, the bridge. Well, they used to throw things underneath there all the time. There'd be glass on the bottom. Yeah, a lot of people used to get cut. So you tried not to go down to the bottom. But this is one of those old steel garbage cans, you couldn't see it. Probably about 4 inches underneath the water.
I know. This is what you're going to be known as.
Hi there. Brother, get in here.
You know that?
Yeah, I'll have my wife.
Or anything like that, raise your hand if you're not here. We don't want to leave you in the restroom. I think we had 50. It looks like everyone. I don't see any missing seats. Everyone seems to be filling in all the seats, so we'll continue. We're going to exit out of here, and we're going to go left, Willie. South here. Not a bad stop. A lot of reminiscing there. Listening to your stories are wonderful. I was telling people you guys could do oral histories of the neighborhood. Lots of stories. Oh yeah. The parks is, of course, the park. You know, you guys remember it as a youth, bike riding, maybe taking one of your first girlfriends or boyfriends for a stroll, family picnics, you name it. The Germans were really the ones to push for the park system. They really wanted green space, and that's one of the direct results of growing up in the 1890s, 1880s, turn of the century. Chicago was a filthy city. Some of your streets weren't paved, you had horses everywhere, manure, coal burning, soot, and so the parks were a place to get away from that crazy urban environment. And we're going to pause right by this opening here. This is the former Rose Garden coming up. No, not so much a Rose Garden anymore, and it is guarded by the buffalo. Supposedly cast for the 1893 World's Fair. Chicago's hosted two World's Fairs. One was in 1893 called the World's Columbian Exposition. There's a great book out called The Devil in the White City about building that fair. Edward Kemys is the sculptor for the buffalo. He's also the sculptor for the lions that are in front of the Art Institute. So if you're down in front of the lions, the same sculptor who did these animals. He was doing sculpture work at the fair of 1893, but most of the sculpture work was not permanent. It was temporary, so these were cast in 1894, 1 year later, and have been in the park ever since. So, not so much the former Rose Garden, as you probably remember it, more of a perennial garden, what's in season. But this was one of Jensen's earliest projects here. Do you guys want it? You want to take a picture? You can get off. If anyone wants to take a quick picture, jump on off, or if you want to get off the bus, you're more than welcome. Let Willie straighten out the bus a little bit here. Alrighty, any picture takers, come on up. This is your tour today, everyone. See, different parts, different people have different reminisce. Some people really love those buffaloes. Once you go north of Humboldt Park, this is a historic district today. Since 1977, Humboldt Park Drive, or Humboldt Park Boulevard, up through Palmer Square and down Logan Boulevard is a historic district since 1977. So again, on the left and right, you're going to see the usual, a lot of single family homes, older homes, some of the Queen Anne's. You're going to see some of the famous gray stones that Chicago is known for, that's made out of Bedford limestone or Indiana limestone. And again, in the 1930s and 1920s, the luxury apartment, the big courthouse, the big courtyard apartment buildings, and the luxury apartment buildings start coming into neighborhoods like this. Obviously, that one was a new one. That was condominium. This is Bloomingdale Street. This is that elevated park now. There's an elevated park in New York as well, in Manhattan, and we kind of got our idea out of that one. Cortland, I don't know if you know, probably many of us rode Schwinn bicycles. Ignaz Schwinn was from Chicago. The factory was on Cortland, 3701 West Cortland. That was the Schwinn factory, just over that way. I don't know that church, I'm so sorry. Most all of the churches that you're going to see, even St. Sylvester's, have Spanish masses now. I know that's on the list of places to show. That's going to be coming up on your right very shortly at the edge of Palmer Square. This is Armitage that we're crossing. And again, you'll see beautiful single-family homes on the boulevards here. They're hard to pick out because of the trees, but normally the wealthier classes lived on the boulevards. You had this beautiful front yard. You could throw parties on the medians here, and some beautiful four-square homes over there, turn-of-the-century homes here. And St. Sylvester's Church is coming up right here on your right. It was an Irish church. And we're going to pause right in front of it. It's right over here. That was the Irish church in the neighborhood. Not a huge Irish population up here, although there was, obviously, since you have an Irish congregation, you did have a sizable Irish, north side Irish population here, and that's old St. Sylvester's Church. Beautiful brick and limestone church there. Very Gothic, Gothic looking church there. Married there, St. Sylvester's is late. First Holy Communion here, so yeah. This is Palmer Square to your left, and if you can, we're going to turn left, Willie. I know I'm making your life hard today. Palmer Square is part of the boulevard system. It connects Humboldt Boulevard to Kedzie Boulevard. In the 1890s, this was the horse carriages where they would exercise their horses and actually race one another around Palmer Square. And again, this makes up part of the Logan Boulevard Historic District. Some beautiful single-family homes, some three flats, you name it. Beautiful two single-family homes here, four square homes. Greystone 2-flat. Now, Logan Square is much better off than Humboldt Park. You don't have as many of the gang problems up here. You're getting wealthier people similar to Wicker Park and Bucktown moving into these beautiful homes along the boulevards here. And we're going to turn right, yep. This is going to be Kedzie Boulevard. It's only Kedzie Boulevard that up here where it connects Humboldt to Logan. Other than that, it's just Kedzie Street. It's supposed to rain on and off today. It is raining right now. If you're staying for the weekend, it's supposed to get a little hotter. So this is Kedzie. We're going to go up to Logan Square itself. John Logan is a Civil War general from Illinois, and that's where we get Logan Square from. There's also a Logan statue in Grant Park, made famous from the 1968 National Democratic Convention. So he was a Civil War general from Illinois, and that's why we have Logan Square here. His statue is in Grant Park. He also gave us Decoration Day. We know it as Memorial Day. It's a holiday that General Logan basically pitched to the U.S. government. Yep. Yeah, it used to be called Decoration Day. Logan Square is it's heavily Hispanic. We do have what we call the hipsters, a very young crowd that, is very much into their bike riding and somewhat similar to Wicker Park in Bucktown, where you're getting wealthier people moving in, but not totally. It's a good mix of Hispanic. They still try to keep their working class roots in the neighborhood. And we're going to go all the way around the statue. The statue itself, it was built in 1918. It is to commemorate Illinois' 100-year anniversary of statehood. So the sculptor is Henry Bacon. Henry Bacon is the same sculptor that did the Washington Monument in D.C. He also did the base of the Statue of the Republic at the 1893 World's Fair. And he also did the base there's a replica statue down in Jackson Park in Chicago, and he did that base. So it's a Doric column. It is the same size as the Parthenon on top of the Acropolis. It's the same exact proportions. It's made out of marble. There's a 10-foot eagle on top, and his idea was to connect the first democracy in Greece, really, to our democratic principles in America. There's 4 reliefs that go around it, 4 relief sculptures on the base, and that's Mercury, Ceres, Hiawatha, and Daniel Boone. Again, the Greek goddess and gods coming to meet the Midwest with Hiawatha, Daniel Boone, that sort of thing. So those are those reliefs that go around. The subway station is still over there. It's the blue line that comes right through here today. This is Milwaukee Avenue. Again, we're crossing Milwaukee quite a bit. We're going to go all the way around the turnabout. This used to be more of a park. Now it's kind of a European roundabout. The Norwegian Church is still a Norwegian church. It's Norwegian Lutheran Memorial Church. It's one of the only Norwegian churches that still have Mass in the native language. I believe it's one of 2 in America. There's one up in Minneapolis. They are known for a wonderful Christmas bazaar, where they sell cookies and all sorts of goods around Christmas time. It's a beautiful church, and it's right here ahead of us. Built in, I think, 1912, I want to say.
Are you going to the dinner tomorrow?
You, me, and my sister.
Okay.
Maybe my brother-in-law. That's a little confusing because the way I remember it.
Because Humboldt Park, Logan Square had a sizable Scandinavian population. Norwegians, even Swedes. The Swedes moved a little bit further north, where they opened North Park University. It's a Swedish Covenant University, opened up in 1892. Oh, we're going to go that way. Sorry, Willie. We're going to go down Logan Boulevard. Yep, sorry. So this is the actual Logan Square itself. It's about the farthest north we're going to go. It's kind of a European roundabout today. Another thing that really transformed what the neighborhoods look like, maybe not so much for you guys, but the expressways tore right through Logan Square in the 1950s. People started to lose their homes. People started to leave the neighborhood into other neighborhoods. The expressways really gutted many, many neighborhoods of Chicago.
Yeah, basically I found my wife at work. We got married, I moved on to Maple.
This is the old auditorium building, the Logan Square Auditorium. Beautiful brick and terracotta building. Terracotta is that cream material where you can decorate it. It's basically clay that's hardened. You can glaze it, sculpt it very easily here. back on Armitage, just in case you haven't been following the street signs. We're heading east. What we're going to do is we're going to take a trip down North Avenue. We're going to start at Damon and go all the way west to about Cicero. And then we're going to turn around and then try to cover some of the neighborhood around the school. What I found out, the east-west streets that go from California to Western are a little more accessible than the north-south streets because of that train line that runs right through your streets. Willie looked on California, the viaducts are high enough because that's a major street, but on those side streets they go too low. So I think I'm going to be able to get you the east-west streets, but not the north-south streets, everyone. I'm sorry. And we'll do that last because we're going to be right by the school. So like I'm not sure if we're going to be able to go down Washtenaw. We'll see. Rockwell was being resurfaced when I drove by. Those are all those northwest streets that I'm talking about. We'll see. And of course these older neighborhoods, you know, especially Bugtown, not so much Humboldt Park, but a little bit, you know, the houses are below street level. We raised the level of the streets in 1909. And that's why every home that was built before that is below street level unless you jacked it up, which was very expensive for homeowners to do. That's where the original privy was, down there under the sidewalk, and we are on vaulted sidewalks. We put in the modern sewer system basically in 1909. We don't dig down very deep in Chicago. We're built on very swampy land. So you put the old sewers at the old street level and you pave new streets right on top. And we have what we call vaulted sidewalks. And you'll see that heavily in Wicker Park, Bucktown, and some of the older neighborhoods. Yes. Very swampy. Chicago comes from a Native American term for smelly onions, or like a weed plant, and it was like Chicago, and like a stinky onion plant. We're prairie. We're built on the mouth of a river and the lake, so we're very swampy soil. Yeah. That's why in downtown, you know, some of those old buildings, the foundations would, you know, lean, you get foundations collapsing, and, you know, the engineers that did downtown were brilliant engineers to put in what they called floating foundations to support those huge skyscrapers. Yeah. We're a very vertical city. We're built out of the muck, as they call it. Yeah, they call them vaulted sidewalks. Most of our sidewalks are hollow. There's all sorts of infrastructure. So everyone ate at the Sam's Red Hot stand, I'm assuming, as a boy or girl. I've heard that. I've heard that name, yeah. I think so. Yes. Okay. We are going to have a little something to eat when you guys get back. That's why we're not really stopping at one of the hot dog stands or anything like that. And I think we're going to finish up a little bit earlier than 2. So, you know, you probably will have your snack about an hour or so. So this is what I'm talking about, buildings below street level. You know, you guys are all used to that. Yeah, this is the basement apartment with the old steam pipes running through, and you know, yeah, much cheaper rent. Another thing that's going to be landmarked, I told some people at the Humboldt Park stop that some of the White Castles are going to be landmarked in Chicago. So are these old Schlitz Tide Houses. This is a Schlitz Tide House. Schlitz Brewery Company had their own restaurant. And so if you look up above, you'll see the emblem for Schlitz. These were called Tide Houses. There was a restaurant, and they had bars in there, obviously. And Schlitz owned them, and these are going to be landmarked as well.
Look at the old bricks there. All apart. It's covered right over.
Most people going into the dentist probably have no idea what Schlitz is anyway, so. Now we've been down this stretch, but one of my lists to cover was North Avenue from Damon to Cicero. So we're going to go over to North Avenue. You haven't seen that part once we turn on to North Avenue, and it'll be very, very familiar to you all. They don't tear down all old firehouses. This is an old firehouse here. That's now a restaurant. So right under the L tracks on the left will be the old Turkish bathhouse. That is now Spring Restaurant, a very fancy restaurant, the white brick building. That's the old North Avenue bathhouse. The apartment buildings that someone was talking about would have been right over here. There's a brand new condominium building. This is a beautiful courtyard building here.
Wasn't this the building right here? Yeah, this red brick. This is the association house.
Yeah.
2150, right there. I remember that.
Oh yeah.
I remember
Still a beautiful single-family home hanging on right here.
Is that like a teen center or something?
It's probably from the 1880s.
I remember that.
A lot of new condominiums here on your right. A lot of, had to tear down a lot of buildings here for these new buildings. It's a good mix of like the old, the 1880s, 1890s, and you know, all these new buildings came in the past 10 years.
That's where they killed that cop. I saw a cop killer.
And then at Western Avenue, as you see, all this new development kind of just stops. these northwest streets that we're passing, these are going to be some of the ones that if you look down, those viaducts are too low. Beautiful building here. We're passing Rockwell for anyone that's reminiscing about Rockwell Street. You can see some of the traffic dividers. We're not going to be able to take buses down those streets with the traffic dividers. We're crossing Tallman. We're going past Washtenaw. As you can see, they're resurfacing Washtenaw, everyone. And this is Fairfield here. This is Humboldt Park again, and beautiful building right across the street here. And again, this new modern condominium, this is what the neighborhood's fighting today. They don't want a lot of buildings like this coming in. Passing Mozart. And as you can tell, once you cross Western Avenue, it totally changes the look, the feel of the neighborhood now. And once you're past Kedzie even, it's gonna, the neighborhood will deteriorate a little bit or get, you know, a little, not an area where you'd really get out and walk around anymore, or, you know. Division Street south of us, yes. Yes, that way. You get a better look at the Armory here coming up on your left. Yes, new library, definitely. Another new building intermixed with some of these older buildings here. Beautiful, another brick and terracotta building. Terracotta was heavily used on very well-to-do streets. So North Avenue at one time, obviously a very well-to-do shopping street. Division Street, about every 4th street was a major artery, you know, a major thoroughfare. And this is where the major shopping districts were. Normally, the most expensive buildings were brick and terracotta. It was a way to show off your building, try to get customers to come in, and you'll see a lot of great old buildings right along here on North Avenue. What was it called? Oh, it's still there.
It's still there, Rosers. The best strawberry whipped
You can see again, if you're looking up, the architecture of the era, if you look up above the first floor here. New strip malls are probably all new to you, the strip mall era. You're going to start to see more vacant lots come in, more boarded up businesses as we go a little bit further west. Probably different, but the same as you guys are remembering the street, maybe. You know, similar buildings, but totally different businesses, different populations. She's saying she doesn't even recognize it, you know, so a lot of change since you guys have left, yeah. What?
That was back that way, back by Rock's office. Upstairs?
Very rarely. On the south, on the south side still.
That's where we used to go bowling there and over by Congress. Or the Avenue Bowl, that was back by Rockwell.
As you see, very heavily Hispanic. And that's the way our city's going. Again, at the last census, we have about 3 million people. We have over 1 million Mexican and Hispanic population, so 1/3 of our population today. We have the largest Mexican population outside of East LA, so second largest Mexican population in the country. Mexican alone. Yeah. Puerto Ricans, since Humboldt Park's known as a Puerto Rican neighborhood, about 120,000 Puerto Ricans. Our third largest Hispanic population is Cuban, and that's about 40 to 50,000 Cubans. This is Pulaski, Crawford. You know, back in the old bus lines, if you had a Polish driver, it would be very much Pulaski, Crawford. And if you had someone who wasn't so Polish, Crawford, Pulaski. That's how they used to announce it here on the street, depending on the driver. It was a big to-do when they wanted to rename Crawford Pulaski. It went to the courts and everything. It was a very big court case. Once you get outside of the city, it is Crawford. Once you get into the north suburbs, it's still Crawford. Kimball's still Kimball. Oh, it is. You're right. It's still that way. Yeah.
I only left Chicago 20 years ago.
We only have one of them, and that's the one that goes through. Another beautiful terracotta storefront up here on the right. It's probably at one time a theater. You just tell by the look of the building, maybe. And this is Grand Avenue coming in. Grand Avenue was a migratory path for Italians. It went all the way down Grand, outside into the suburbs. Milwaukee Avenue was a migratory path for the Poles. The Germans went north, up Western. The Jewish population in Humboldt Park went north, up to Foster, up to Devon, and then into the north suburbs. Oh yeah, Humboldt Park had a very sizable Jewish population, and they went west, they went north. we had a huge Jewish population in Chicago. There was South Side Jews, there was West Side Jews, Humboldt Park Jews, and then the Humboldt Park Jewish population went west and north, up to Lawrence Avenue. There was a huge Jewish shopping district, and then even up to Foster, and then up to Devon Avenue, and then into our north suburbs.
Yes. The grass is gorgeous too. Really? 30?
If you still want a great corned beef sandwich, I don't know if any of you are staying downtown, but right on Jefferson by the old, where the Fire Academy is, it's just south of downtown, is one of the best Jewish delis. It's slipping my mind. Manny's, yes. Menards is like a big box lumber store, hardware store, similar to Home Depot. This was the Sticks, eventually. You get kind of west of Cicero, start hitting the burbs, or when it was early Chicago, we called it the Sticks. Out there somewhere, the Sticks. People say, well, you know, I listened. They're saying I'm too young to know these terms. I love listening to my dad and his brothers and sister. What they would, you know, as I learned about Chicago, I'd always call them. You know, tell me about what your experience in Chicago. I'd call another uncle. Tell me about your experience, because I wanted to learn about my city, and they grew up in it in a big pack. You know, there was 8 brothers and a sister, huge family, and yeah, they similar to you all. You know, when they were adults by the end of the 70s. So you know, they grew up in the 60s and late 50s in these neighborhoods, and it was great listening to them, all the old stories and how they'd get to walk around and how little money they needed. And okay. Yeah. Heavy food. They fed you. We saved your immediate neighborhood at last. So we're going to try to, once we get back over to Humboldt Park, we're going to try to hit some of those side streets for you all and see what we can do. I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to see their building or their home they grew up in or something like that. We'll try to do our best. Where's that neighbor you
And in your experience, especially your cars parked on both sides, even a one-way street.
Yes, Kimball is still to the north of North Avenue and Holman is still to the south, as you see the street sign. It's another thing, people coming to Chicago, the tourists I have, our streets drive people crazy. I think it's very easy, you know, being on the grid system, but people that come here, you have diagonal streets, you have six-corner intersections, you have some streets that change names. How do you get around? Where do they come from? Yes. We will show you the main building of Thule for sure. We will.
Yeah, Grocers, that's it. That's where I'm coming right after this. I'm coming back with strawberry whipped cream. That is the best. Yeah. That thing's been there more than 50 years. Remember going out and the bottles at 6 feet? Boy, the price of gas is going up so high. When it gets to be $1, I'm parking my car. Can't afford to drive a car at $1 again. Now we're lucky that it came down to $3.95. Healthcare center now. This one over here says trust healing care.
Rembrandt's
That's right. I pints for $1. They got mad when it went to 4 pints for $1.
She said between 1 and 2. That's a little bit like they're going to meet you in
Oh, there was a party over there.
This is your school again, yes. We're going to try to hit some of the side streets for you after the viaduct. We're going to try to do some of the east-west side streets. Wabansia has those traffic circles that cause big problems for buses. Our side streets are not very friendly for a 60-foot bus.
Holman Avenue is blocked off, right?
See this big empty lot? They want it to be California Estates, but since the economy, you see some newer houses right here. Across the way, much more of the older housing stock. We can go down Cortlandt. We'll try Cortlandt here. I noticed north of the viaduct was fine. South of the viaduct had all those crazy turnarounds and stuff.
I don't know, it's a two-way street. He's gonna have a hard time.
I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I would have taken another street.
It's all designed.
So this is Cortlandt. You can see some look at these new houses right here on the corner on your right. new modern houses across from some old 3 flats. This is what's coming this way into the neighborhood, houses like this, instead of the houses that you probably know. Yeah. Look at that small frame home next to 2 modern homes. Very unique. Brand new condominium building over here on your left. Why don't we try to go right? Yeah. If you can. Yeah. Oh yeah, the viaduct. Yep. 11-6. Alright, why don't we go down this one-way street?
Can't go down there.
This is what we, well, we're not going to go down this way. This is what we were trying to avoid, everyone. I think if we go left, and even though it's one way, we're only going one way, exactly. Or we're going to turn around and go right back down Cortland, everyone.
3-point turn in the bus.
So this is why I was normally sticking to the major streets today, everyone. Willie's a genius with this thing, you'll see. Originally we were going to have a really tiny bus for about 35 people, and then you all started booking, and then we had to keep moving up, and then we ended up, this is the biggest bus we could get. So that's in, and then walk back to the pool. Yeah. Yeah, you could do your own little tour. What we're talking about up here was if people wanted to get off and do their own little walking through some of these blocks. But your best bet might be when we get back to the school to walk a few of the blocks, or even go in your car if you want to see some of these blocks that are right around the school. We're not going to be able to get any of the north-south street because of that viaduct. 11-6, we're 11-10, so yeah. Go back to Cali. We'll turn right on California. Trust me, me and Jim had many conversations about buses when we were setting this up. This is back to Armitage, everyone. We're on a smaller bus tomorrow, but again, we normally don't do a lot of the side streets. You know, they're residential, and you know, we normally stick. This looks like just an old either warehouse or factory building. What? Knitting? This is North Point, so one of the schools, Chase Elementary, is right there to your left. That was one of the schools you wanted me to point out there. Right over there on North Point Street. That's a crazy diagonal street there. Yeah. When I found it on the map, it took me a while there, Jim. Why don't we cruise? Can we turn right on Rockwell here? It's all right. We're going to go left on Cortland then. We're past that construction, I think. Nice big turning radius, huh? Again, more new homes coming up here on your right, next to the older homes here. This looks like an old storefront building that's now homes. You could just tell.
What's this? All renovated. Yeah.
Some of the frame homes here, brick and frame. Whew. That's tight.
That's tight. Where's this
It's always a way, right? For every new home, you have an old home, just about. Very modern there, next to this nice little cottage. Some people, Willie's asking me, do they pay someone to, no, most people are buying an old home, paying the money for a wrecker to come in, wreck it, and then paying for an architect to design a new one, and then paying for a construction company to build a new one. That's the kind of money that's coming in. Some of the homes, when you're in a troubled neighborhood, were torn down by the city. It's hard to determine that when you're looking at a new home because they were boarded up and dangerous. So normally you're buying either a vacant lot or an old house that's boarded up and being ready for to be demolished, and then you demolish it and then build something brand new. So it could be either. Not a lot of gut rehabs is what you can gut it. Now in Wicker Park, some of the old Victorian mansions that I could take you down were completely gut rehabbed, but normally in what we call this Bucktown, normally tear downs and new buildings. This is a very wealthy neighborhood now.
Yeah, very nice.
The lots are typical Chicago lot. You have about 30 feet wide, about 90 feet back, a gangway in between. Normally when you get the double wide lots, you're paying big taxes for those double wides, and those are only in certain neighborhoods. We're turned right here on Western.
No, I don't think it does.
Yeah. You can always tell the original buildings with the brickwork. Even a simple brick building like that has some architectural detailing to it. No buildings were built like cookie cutter like you see today. All the buildings in Chicago, since we're such an architecturally significant city, even the smallest factory building had some kind of decorative brickwork in it. White Castle? I hear a lot of White Castle references going on.
When you look down the center, then you see those circle things. See? Yeah. Actually, I believe it.
It's not much myself. Height for our viaducts.
We bought our first car.
the original Tully High School. I'll get off right now. Sorry about that. It's going to be on your left. There's going to be a break in the 3 flat buildings on your right, on your left, and it should be right over there. Wow, this is a tough crowd. Yes, this is all additions coming up on your left. So basically, huge schools. Yeah, huge schools back then, huge population. So that is right behind you there.
That's a St. Mary's Hospital. It used to be a little one-story hospital.
We'll turn right here in the division. Clemente, of course, after Roberto Clemente. St. Fidel's is on one of those streets. It's on Washtenaw. It's a North-South Street. I couldn't get it down because of the viaducts and the turnarounds. On Washtenaw? It's south of North Avenue? Alright. It's one way going south. I have it as, 1306 North Washtenaw. But it is a one-way street south on the Sorry, sir. You are back on Division. This is part of the Paseo Boricua, the Puerto Rican Passage. They actually have a business deal with the city if you're going to open up a business, because they want this to be a large business district, that they will help fund part of the construction costs.
It's on the radio.
All you can do is the best you can do. Let them take it.
Where that is, the radio goes.
Basically what they told him, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, study through the CPA. On the 5th day, so he did that for 4 years.
So this is Washtenaw here. If you look down, if there's not a traffic circle in the street, which there is at that first block, you see those things? Yeah, I can't get the bus down there, but St. Fidel's is right down that street. It's really, some of these side streets are really car only, and we were finding that out as we started to plan this. We'll just turn right here on California. They really started putting in those traffic circles. In my neighborhood, they do speed bumps. I don't know why they didn't do speed bumps over here. Those traffic circles are, it's really to slow down traffic. A lot of kids playing, and it's unfortunate, but there was less cars when you were, growing up. Everyone has a car now, and they fly up and down the street. And beautiful old gray stone building here. It's next to a single-family home there. Beautiful. This is that Casa Central that I was talking about, very large social service agency in the neighborhood. They bought up just about this whole block that they utilize here. Beautiful building here on the corner. Beautiful decorative work above the doorways there. Another great gray stone, and these were the luxury houses that were built, you know, on the parks and the boulevards. I like this building. The bay windows just recently redone.
You still have what, Maplewood, then Artesians? You got 2 blocks farther. Oh, okay.
Right here, this is here. So I tried to show you as much as possible today. I hope you enjoyed most of your tour through the neighborhood here. I know you guys could probably point out all the what used to be there much better than I could. But we're right back here at the school. We're going to end the tour here. Again, you guys might have some time if you want to get in your cars and, you know, drive some of the side streets. Sandy's saying that's probably your best bet, to see some of the side streets where you grew up on there.
Good job, Jason.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's their pride and glory. That's their time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, here's I love terracotta. You know, it's a great where it comes from.
I can't believe how you handled that process. How long did I put this in my mouth a few times?
Well, you get used to it, you do it enough.
Yeah, you did a great job. Thank you.
You live in Chicago, you get used to it.
Yeah, well, we've been away from Chicago too long. It's the trouble.
The last week on some neighborhood tours. One of the girls and I go downtown all the time.
Oh, it's supposed to be only 70-some degrees today.
Someone's coming off, I'm going to cross in front. Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you so much. But you're glad to be back home.
Oh, okay.
Glad to be there, but I don't want to stay no longer 2 or 3 days. Thank you. Yeah, this one hurts. You see a lot of things. They're going down in the neighborhood. Going down. Really, I didn't think oh, believe me, I practiced yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
It's not necessary, but thank you. I appreciate this.
Good. Good.
All right, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. All right. Oh, no, I don't. I go home and tremble at night. I always have a joke for everything to make me do it even now. Thank you. Thank you.
Where is our...
Let's wait for Dean.
Have a good day. All right, man. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Well, you can take a picture later. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's do it now. Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's good. Thank you.
No, he's not.
The guy?
What is the people that are going to, you don't want to go on the tour?
I guess not. I'm going on the tour.
Do they know?
I don't know. Is there
Never get lost. That's it.
Are you good?
Darling.
Oh, you got all my stuff?
You jump out there.
Go back there and check to make sure.
All right, man.